Welcome everybody to another Indie Dev Showcase here on the channel. Each week I take a look at 6 of the games that we play from many of our indie streams, which are held on Wednesdays. And we're always looking for new games to spotlight. Unless otherwise noted, these games are all played with press keys submitted by developers. And for our first game, this is Journey of the Broken Circle. This is a kind of puzzle platformer very reminiscent of Thomas Was Alone, although with very different geometric shapes. As the story goes, we are playing as a broken circle who is trying to figure out its way in life in this crazy world. And to do so, we're going to be doing a lot of platforming. And you're going to be moving around and just simply trying to get from point A to point B. I do like how the characters interact with each other as you're trying to make through the story instead of just having to stop and read exposition. Now, the basic gameplay again is that each character or each shape has a specific power. So our lovely little triangle that's like stuck inside of us allows us to kind of stick to walls. And as the story goes on, characters will join and leave you accordingly, and that will change what you're able to do. It's a very interesting idea and kind of riff off again the Thomas Was Alone formula. And from what we played, I don't know if they all kind of come together in the future, similar to Thomas Was Alone's kind of advanced puzzles. Now, with that said though, the general platforming is not going to be the most challenging. If you're hoping for, super high level content here, you're not going to find it. I believe there are hidden mushrooms that act as MacGuffins for you to uncover. And the platforming was, I think, on the average to maybe a little bit above average in terms of difficulty. And ultimately, this is one of those games that it's not bad. Has an interesting story. Gameplay didn't do anything I would say that is wrong. If you haven't played Thomas Was Alone yet, I would say give that one a check. But if you are looking for another game along those lines in terms of puzzle platforming, then Journey of the Broken Circle could be a decent one to pick up for an afternoon or two. For our next game, we turn to Guild of Darksteel. And this is an interesting one. We played this as a demo during one of the festivals. And in a way, it's a kind of a combination of the old platforming adventure style games like Out of This World and Flashback, but with a more or greater focus on 2D combat. And it kind of has a very weird mix of elements to it. The story is that you are part of a guild of, Darksteel, and the Darksteel armor basically grants anyone who wears it immortality. And it's kind of built into this universe that you are basically the ultimate sellsword, because you can die and then come right back and keep completing your mission. So, combat is going to be, I think, where this game makes or breaks. It is entirely kind of rhythm-based, as you need to set up attacks using your various buttons. And then when you perform certain combos, they'll add kind of unique flourishes or bonus effects to it, all while you're trying to kind of parry and get around the enemy. Every enemy has a specific attack pattern, so it means that once you follow one bat or one bandit of a specific type, it's going to be the same thing each time you play. Now, the very big point that the demo didn't quite show off is the progression. And what I mean by progression is how does things kind of move forward in terms of power. The story seems to sell you on this idea of performing various quests, and they're all going to be kind of interjoined by a greater narrative, but I'm not sure if there's going to be different endings, different weapons, different things that can change things up. Again, the platforming is of the rigid nature, so this is not going to be a game that's going to give you too much in terms of a variety of jumps or jumping-based challenges. But there's definitely something interesting here. I don't know from this demo if it's all going to come together, but if you are a fan of 2D action games and looking for, I don't know if I would describe this as a Souls-like, but kind of a more combat focused take on 2D action, check out the demo for this one and let me know what you think. We go from dark and depressing to probably the cutest game we're going to play tonight, or show off. This is ProtoCorgi. And this was a Steam recommendation that I think turned out a lot better than I expected. So what we have here is and I'm quoting the store page, a bark 'em up. As you play as this dog named Bullet, who is, well, a dog ship? Spaceship dog? Something along those lines. And it's up to you to do all the shmupping and bullet hell that we come to expect as you bark your way through challenges. The general kind of shmup play reminds me a little bit of, I think it was Gradius back in the day, that as you pick up power-ups, it kind of gives you the cycle of powers that you see in the bottom there, kind of blocked by my promo. And you can select whatever one you want, which will then change the properties of, well, your dog here. Getting a Kamehameha laser, shooting missiles, and all that craziness. I gotta say the pixel art in this one is really well done, and I like how enemies actually show tells to let you know when something's about to come your way. From what I played of the demo, it was only like a one-stage play of it, but it definitely seems like we're going like maximum cute factor here. I don't know how hard this game is going to get, but this does seem like a very inventive and just very like joyful shoot 'em up. If you are looking for one of those games and don't exactly want to break your hands with something like Super Hydora or, you know, the Cave bullet hell shooters. And ultimately from the demo here, I think this is just looking like to be a very solid game. And again, I was not expecting to find this, at least from a Steam recommendation, and I'm glad that I had a chance to play it. So, with that said, we're going to take our quick break now. And when we come back, we have 3 more games to look at for this week's Indie Showcase. And now for a quick thank you to our current Patreon supporters. And if you're interested in my books on design, they are available at most major retailers. 20 Essential Games to Study is for first-time developers looking to be inspired, and the Game Design Deep Dive series covers the history and philosophy of major genres, with horror coming later in 2021. For our next game, we have Projection First Light, and this is a puzzle platformer, where, as you can tell, lighting and shadow are going to be our primary mechanics. How this works is that you control both the girl as well as the kind of floating ball of light up there as they explore the world. Wherever the light casts a shadow, basically turns that into an actual physics object. So it lets you create platforms, bridges, and so on and so forth. Now, the world itself, as you can see, goes through different environments, and your overall challenge is going to be moving from point A to point B. There are hidden MacGuffins you can find and collectibles. Now the story, no pun intended, is kind of on the dark side, where the beginning of this girl causes like a massive accident and untold amount of property damage, and then she decides to run away from home. And we kind of go on a little adventure there. In terms of the difficulty, I would say this would be on the moderate to moderately difficult side. See, the challenge is that as the camera moves according to where the girl is, it changes the orientation of the orb. So when you're doing a lot of moving around such, it's very easy for just like a slight change to completely alter where the shadow is. And it can be a little weird sometimes deciding like what angle you need to do to jump up there. And things certainly do get complicated once you get into kind of the later parts of this game, and you have to kind of change the shadow while moving the girl, while moving the orb, all at the same time. And while it doesn't get like super difficult, it may get a little frustrating in terms of how long or how spaced checkpoints are, as these sections get a little bit more complicated and a little bit longer as well. But other than that, I would say this is an interesting game to check out. I don't think it's the best example of this kind of design, or in terms of puzzle platforming, But if you are looking for something new and different, and you like this kind of art style, then I would say give this one a check. Now up, we have Ninth Dawn 3. And yes, that is the name of this one. And this is kind of in a series of open world action RPG design. Think something like, again, like the Elder Scrolls, Oblivion, Skyrim, but done in more of an action RPG style. And the hook of this one is that we are, of course, the chosen one who's going to have to somehow save this land from evil, one dungeon and enemy at a time. So, all the kind of staples of this kind of design are here. You have free reign to build your character however you see fit. If you want to go range, magic, stealing, just go pure melee, you can do that. And of course you'll be exploring this world, interacting with all the various denizens, and fighting all manner of monsters that are getting your way. And as you explore, you'll come to various dungeons that you'll need to clear out. And I would say Ninth Dawn 3 is kind of in that same category as something like the Ceruleum series. That it's not the most polished example of this kind of design, but you can tell the developer is very passionate about it, and they are really trying to go all out, given their own limitations. And with this game, my main issue that I had with it is that it's very floaty in terms of how combat works. And the second you start to get surrounded by like any number of enemies, you really aren't able to fight them without taking massive amounts of damage. And yes, you are going to have to sort through your massive amount of inventory, make sure you have your various healing items hotkeyed as you see in the bottom. And of course, try to figure out what loot is best for you. So again, while I don't think this is the most refined example of this, if you are looking for this kind of design, especially a game that has a lot of content to go through, then give this one a check. But if you're hoping for something that's on the smaller side, or maybe more on the polished side, I think this game may be a little too big for you. And speaking about a game that may be too giant and a little unwieldy, our final game for this video, Final Upgrade, may have some of the greatest potential we have seen for an all-around amazing title, if they can kind of get around some of their issues. And there is no sound here as we play this on stream with basically Shark providing narration / guidance. So, the general concept for this one is, what if Factorio, but on a universal scale? And if the thought of that scares the heck out of you, then stay far away from this game. But if that sounds like it's right up your alley, then go buy this game now. So, our concept here is that we are setting up ships, mining, trade routes, research, you name it, in order to build this empire and gain the resources that we need to just keep going and growing. The more we do, the more experience we gain. That experience is used to unlock new stuff. And it just basically goes through the ever-growing progression and power curve of these games. First, you need to get basic resources. Those resources will be upgraded into more things, and then those will get even more. So the entire universe is open to you, and the idea is that energy, or the I think it's EC that you see at the top of the screen, is your universal currency. You're going to use this for buying, you're going to use it for power, etc. And you are, as you can see here, have complete reign in terms of designing your ships. Each ship can be set up to do its own thing, and that's where you get into kind of the micro layer of something like Factorio. So if you want to build a mining vessel that also refines the goods right there on site, you can do that. If you want to build a combat ship, or a ship that's designed for a specific goal, or even just your very specialty transport / supply ship, you can do that, as every ship is essentially, it's not exactly modular, but every ship is essentially a husk. that you fill with these objects. You set how everything moves in between them, and you are able to design that down to the most minute detail. And you are free to, again, use the pre-made ships if you aren't able to, or you don't want to spend the time here. And just like with all the other games that we've played, all these objects that you see, there are upgrades and enhanced versions and even more things to build and supply them with as the game goes on. And yeah, so like the level of detail and depth in Final Upgrade may exceed Factorio, especially as the game continues its early access. So here is the big catch for all of this. The onboarding, the UI, UX aren't that good. Now, please keep in mind the following. We play this, or this footage that you're seeing is from about at least 5 to 6 months ago. And the developer has been doing a lot in terms of onboarding and the UI and the UX. I don't know where it's at this current moment. But when we play this, there is a lot to unpack that the tutorial itself really doesn't go into detail about. And so much of this game, or so much of the gameplay now, is just you trying to figure out, what the heck am I looking at? The UI is definitely not the best, and there's so much in terms of resource management, how to set up supply chains and trade routes, building your ships, knowing where to go in what order, that it is so, or it can be borderline insurmountable if you aren't already like a virtuoso at something like Factorio. And let me just say this right here. If you're somebody who found Factorio to be too complicated to figure out, then Final Upgrade in its current state may be even beyond that. But like I said at the start of this section, the potential is here. And if anything that I said sounds interesting to you over this play or over this part of this video, then pick this game up and give it a run. Because this could be the next great logistics, super challenging game that's on the market. While it's not quite there in terms of onboarding and accessibility, the depth is certainly there. And for those of you, I know Shark has played the heck out of this, but for anyone else as well who's had a chance to dip into Final Upgrade, let me know what you think in the comments below, and especially let me know where the game is at right now in terms of growth and any kind of UI UX design or redesigns. But with all that said, we're going to wrap up this week's Indie Showcase here. I'd like to thank developers who submitted games, and as always, we are looking for future titles to show off. If you are interested, please get in touch. Come back for daily discussions on game design here and on game wisdom, where exactly they are in the science of games. Until next time, take care.